What's up, creators? This is Create with me, the JumpCutKing. Today we're decoding 3 acronyms that reshape your traffic and your workflows. RAG, AEO, and GEO. No, I'm not talking about planetary alignment, sometimes called AI Engine Optimization. In plain English, that's how AI finds your content, how it uses it to answer people's questions, and how you can show up inside those answers. Not just as a blue link. RAG first, it means retrieval-augmented generation, letting an AI fetch relevant documents and then generating an answer grounded in those sources. It's a lot of serious AI products reduce hallucinations and stay current, such as ChatGPT, etc. Now, AEO and GEO, the industry is noisy on these terms, but answer, generative engine, and optimization, it's adopting your content so AI systems ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, Copilot, Google's AI overviews can easily understand, cite, and surface you in their responses. It's not replacing SEO, it's kind of right along next to it, aiming at AI answering experiences rather than just link lists. Based off current trends, SEO and AI EO are kind of very important, but soon and very soon, probably within the next year, you're going to see SEO becoming less and less and less important because more people like to ask questions organically as opposed to Google things. So now I can go to ChatGPT, ask it a specific question, and it produces me an answer, unlike search engines where I have to ask the specific query. And even though now Google is integrated with AI, it's just not the same as having a chatbot like ChatGPT or an LLM respond and give you answers. That's a large language model. So why should you care? Because AI answer boxes are, siphoning attention. They're literally moving views. Independent analysis suggests that AI reduces clicks to traditional results on informational queries. That's great for users, but it's tougher for publishers. Before, you could be able to get people to your site by altering keywords, altering meta tags, altering information so that it would appear better in search results. But now AI and LLM is replacing the need for people to Google for everything. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the Google search engine keeps changing and eventually is replaced by a complete chatbot. And I say this because they've already implemented artificial intelligence in their response queries with the hope of gaining your attention so that Google is a replacement for those ChatGPT bots. But to be honest, Google itself is almost feeling archaic in this artificial intelligence world. And I say that meaning with all the love I have for Google and Google Enterprise, but it seems like they're losing views and traffic to Google, and so they're raising their products prices across other services. Like for Google Enterprise customers, they raised my price 3 times in the past 6 to 8 months. And if you ask me, that's a tall tale sign that something on Google is not doing well. The best way to get into an AI chatbot is to have it pull up your website as a cited source. So let's take some look into some case studies that you can learn from. Legal research tools. Okay, so Stanford affiliated study tested leading RAG-based legal tools and found that yes, retrieval helps, but hallucinations still happen. Accuracy ranged widely in their tests. One system hit 65% accurate answers, another around 41%, and still some hallucinated on 1/6 to 1/3 of the queries. Grounding sources matters, and citing them clearly matters even more. This way, users can verify the information. Microsoft 365 Copilot described Copilot as a grounded on your own files, and the Microsoft Graph, classic RAG, it doesn't just guess, it retrieves and cites within your enterprise content. For small teams, that's a blueprint. Organize your data, then let AI retrieve the right pieces so your answers stay on brand and are correct. Answer engines like Perplexity are actively crawling and linking sources. There's even a publisher partnership model in the world and a whole conversation about which bots to allow and which to not. Some reports praise that referral upside, others criticize stealth crawling that ignores robot.txt, which is a fact. by the way. If you think robot.txt is preventing your website from being crawled, it's not. While I can't prove this, it will hide you from Google search results, but will not prevent the Google bot from actually crawling you, and won't prevent other bots from actually crawling and getting information from you. Think of it this way. Robots.txt is a same thing as the request to not track. And it sends a header request to the server saying, hey, please don't track this user. And the server's like, well, I don't care about your request. I can ignore it, completely not read it, or worse, be nefarious, know it exists, and choose not to use it, which many bots, even bots built in Python, bots built in various programming language, can be designed to just ignore robots.txt. And even some libraries are fair enough where they built robots.txt in, there are still ways to get around that. So the big idea for you is know which AI bots you allow officially, because that means they won't surface your results. Doesn't mean they won't crawl you, it just means they won't surface results. And be intentional about being cited. In other words, creating content that AI is going to surface and provide as a citation. So let's look at the difference between AEO, DEO versus SEO. Okay, so traditional SEO is rank my page in a list, right? AEO and GEO is make my page the answer to an AI question. That means clear structured sources, worthy content people can trust, and machines can parse. The terminology is still evolving, but the practices are converging. Direct answers, solid sourcing, and clean structure. That's how AI is currently designed, chatbots to source information. So your practical playbook. Now, let's talk about some content designers that are using other platforms like Squarespace, WordPress, and such, and not web developers. We're going to talk about something that I mentioned in a reel yesterday. We're going to talk about that in just a couple minutes. So it's called Object Schema from schema.org. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Here are 7 impactful steps that you can ship this week. Decide your crawler policy, okay? Opt in for citations versus opting out. If you want to appear in AI results, generally don't block the major AI bots. In fact, delete your robots.txt file. If you don't, you can disallow them in robots.txt. Again, there's no proof that it'll actually stop crawlers from crawling your website, but it will stop them from surfacing your content. Using documented user agents like GPT-bot, OpenAI, or Perplexity bots, they're going to go in and scroll and get information from you. There's an ongoing controversy about compliance, so weigh the benefits versus risk for your current business model. Like I had to disable enterprise Google AI from all of our documents. Make your content answer ready. Lead with a 1-paragraph answer, then details. Use clear headings, question name blocks, and citations to primary sources. Think of it more of, I'm answering a human question, and I'm answering it as human possible. Don't AI generate content because it is going to cause mixed results. But if you break it down so it's logical and break it down so it's easier for the user to read, the AI will actually read that better because it's designed on user conversation. This aligns with how AI extracts and synthesizes. Add correct structured data. Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about schema.org. These are these additional information that you can provide inside your website, like through a meta tags, a series of them, or through a special new object called a JSON object. Now, officially, the JSON object is embedded script. If you use my platform, I actually have a JSON object that is read by the HTML5 parser, both client and server. Schema.org, now this is very interesting. Okay, so let's talk about it. You know, if you have a FAQ, a how to a product local business article, you can use plugins like Yoast or Rank Math on WordPress, Squarespace, and auto generators. It generates a baseline that you can add more to. My platform has certain page types. It adds all the information that you would enter in to create, let's say, add a product. My system automatically creates the object schema because it's complicated and I want to lift it off of you. In fact, the entire purpose behind my framework is that there's something crazy and complicated, I'm going to lift it off of you and make it easier for you to run your business, upload your website, and be able to create trust and brand trust with your customers. with the hopes of creating loyal customers. This makes your page machine readable using schema.org. So your page becomes readable to these machines for both search and AI features. Google has reduced visibility for some rich results like FAQ, how to, quality, and relevance matter. Now, here comes the real reality. In a reel I said that, hey, using schema.org is going to help your SEO. And then I said it might help your AI, GEO. The reality is, it won't. There was a test conducted by a group of people on LinkedIn through a YouTube private post, or not private post, but a YouTube private study that was made public, and that was conducted, and it proved that LLM, large language models, are not trained to understand schema.org content. They're not. And unless the specific Python algorithms and Python functions that run RAG are configured to read schema.org, which they might be for ChatGPT's new checkout experience, but the reality is schema.org is being ignored by AI. And as a developer, I'm like, this is stupid. So if I had a catalog of information, I'd want to read it from a database, like a database object, like schema.org, and be able to share it and customize the interface, and that you'd be able to make purchases, see answers to questions, etc. That's really, really cool. And schema.org is a really, really cool solution to a long-standing problem before AI, where you couldn't get search engines to understand the content perfectly. And Google Marketplace released, and they use schema.org, and they've been working with publishers and stores to be able to get lots of product and content in there to create a seamless experience within Google, to kind of compete with Amazon without competing with Amazon. Instead of having warehouses, they have a Google Marketplace because people would often search for products. And so it's a kind of a better experience. Here's the problem. AI does not use schema objects. Even if I continue to support them in my platform, they're going to become very useless in about 2 years. And I say this because a large language model is designed to scrape data from a book, from a website, from natural human language, and it breaks this data into tokens, which is like a couple characters, 2 to 3 at the most, sometimes 4 characters or more, that kind of break up the page and understands what might come next, what might come before, and that's how it's kind of programmed. And there's other ways to program that model, but train it, if you will, and they produce a bunch of a solid LLM file that has all the weights and estimates when a word will precede another and that kind of thing. That's how LLM works. It's just a very advanced pattern recognition, for lack of a better word. It does not recognize it will output JSON. You can provide JSON to it, but in a page, it's not going to scrape the metadata as fluidly as we'd like. It can probably be configured through RAG to read these particular objects, but according to these studies, there's no proof that it helps. So it helps SEO with Google, and that's debatable nowadays, especially if you're Google Marketplace, you want to be in Google Marketplace, you have to have schema object support. However, with AI starting to surpass search engine results, what I said yesterday is probably inaccurate. Now, I did some research. People sent me some text messages and sent me some DMs and was like, hey, did you know about this? Did you know about this? This is, a lot of marketing companies tell you need to get the schema object. I originally didn't, but I had a client that really, really wanted to integrate into Google Marketplace, and so I had to create a whole swath of code, a whole lot of hours, 20 plus hours, trying to conform the page to output the metadata. Luckily, I had already conformed their product data in a database in a readable format, but there are some weird things that object schema does, and it's really much more complicated than it really should be, because it tries not to assume anything, but yet products have a very defined structure, and even, discounts and all those kinds of things are very complicated within the JSON that's outputted. And I chose to use the JSON because the meta tags were it'd be an infinite amount of meta tags, and I didn't like that. Now, that being said, we support Open Graph, we support, schema.org objects now, but AI isn't going to care. It's not. And even though Shopify says they kind of create some of these themselves, then you have all of this, needing to know product codes, MDN codes, and you need to connect with your vendor to get their ID for the particular product so you're not claimed as fraud. And all of this work that companies are doing and market companies are charging clients lots and lots of money for this, it's starting to feel like schema.org objects are great in theory. It's like the hope that we're going to solve this solution, but the theory is, we're going to be able to provide information for machines to be able to produce better experiences. But with AI, that's not how AI is trained. And frankly, it's trained more on natural human written word than it is on machine code. And even though there are great, Copilot components, there's no evidence that supporting schema.org helps your AEO and GEO. It does help your SEO, but if it becomes too time-consuming, my recommendation would be support Google Marketplace while it still exists, and everything else may not be important. Also, here's another SEO tip, and generally this will help crawlers. Verify your sitemaps. Now, Squarespace auto-creates sitemaps. WordPress plugins can do the same. Universe automatically creates based off of your page's properties. So its private page doesn't show up in your index, but if it is a public page, it shows up in your index automatically. In fact, it even creates a sitemap HTML file where you can go in and scroll through and kind of easier understand what pages are, and it looks gorgeous. So it just fresh discoverable URLs that help both search engines and AI crawlers, robots, map your site. And providing author information, providing sites, citing your work, providing links and backlinks, all this stuff will help AI and Google figure that your content is trustworthy and will help it appear in more citations. Let's talk about performance matters. We talked about this before, about fixing core web vitals. That's user experience, UX, and discoverability. And Google explicitly recommends, in order for you to improve this experience, that you achieve good CWV, faster pages, reduced drop-offs, no matter which engine is sent to the user. Speed, speed, speed. Get that page content out to the user as fast as possible. Reduce having to load external resources immediately. Asynchronous load resources, scripts, styles, etc. So that the user gets the text, the bot gets the text immediately, and they're not required to wait a long time. Why is this? Because many bots use Puppeteer, or a version of Chromium that literally opens up your website and they can extract the text from that. And I can say, as someone who's used it, it takes some time to process larger websites that are kind of, synchronous-based drawing. So making some changes in the back end to help speed up that response time does help, because I want to pull the text that's visible to the user just like Google does. In fact, Google uses a version of Chromium / not technically Puppeteer, but a version of Chromium to actually scroll your website so they know exactly what's visible to the user and you can't hide anything. And the same thing is true about AI. Although you can just write a simple Python script that does wget and pulls information from your website and just pulls the HTML file, and it can read it that way because of the amount of fraud, spam, and all that kind of stuff that people can throw into bots. Most of them are going to use a Chromium instance. It's going to be lightweight, but it's still going to load all the resources to see what text is displayed to the user. It also helps when you're using JavaScript displaying libraries, which I never recommend. I know there's portions of Universe Code where if you're doing dynamic content, that's all loaded through JavaScript and fetch calls, as opposed to there are a lot of frameworks out there that will just use JavaScript everywhere and anywhere, and page content will be all generated through JavaScript. I don't recommend you use those libraries because a user and a chatbot are going to want that information immediately to be able to begin processing it, or frankly, they'll just move on. Publish source pages. That's evergreen, evidence-rich resources, how-tos, definitions, data explainers. The clearer your page answers a cluster of related questions and the better it cites solid resources, the more answerable it becomes across AI systems. This is the core idea behind AEO and GEO playbooks. RAG 101 for your own site. Okay, so mini Copilot for your doc store or community, basic RAG stacks, here they are. Embed and store your content. Turn pages into vectors in a vector database like Theos, Pinecore, or Wavet. Then retrieve the most relevant chunks for user question. And it generates the answer that cites those chunks. That's it. Frameworks like LangChain and LLama Index, Llama Index make this friendly for Python and JavaScript developers. That's how RAG works. It's chunks and embedded in 1 minute. So you split content, it splits content into sensible chunks with a small overlap. Think sentences or sections, not random slices, then creates embeddings, numeric fingerprints. The database can search. Different models have different dimensions. OpenAI's text embedding 3 large users, 3072 dim vectors. To make chunk size and overlap, test what it retrieves best for your data. Again, it's going to look for what's going to respond to a question, it's going to process it, and it's not going to process the entire page. We've just heard, RAG is actually just processing chunks of a page. And so you have to think of the entire page as a great experience for the user, and chunks of a page as a great experience for your bot. Make some changes to the marketing terms you use, don't use too much fluff, make it very human readable, relatable, answer questions in your content, and you'll show up more in GEO. Evaluate your RAG with metrics like faithfulness. Does this answer stick to retrieved resources? In other words, when you're citing, does this answer stick to those sources, or is it all opinion? And answer relevance. Tools like Ragos plug into popular stacks and give you these scores. Real-world RAG, real-world AI connection, back to the legal study. Retrievable helps, but blanket trust is risky. One tool still hallucinated 33% of response answers. Others were better but imperfect. The lesson, evaluate your pipeline, show sources, and keep scope narrow to what you truly know. Don't let AI hallucinate content for you or from you. Microsoft's approach, grounding on your own content, shows why internet retrieval beats generic web knowledge when accuracy matters. Even small teams on WordPress or Notion can mimic this. Clean your docs, tag them, index them, and retrieve before you generate. Publishers and brands working with answer engines, there's an upside when you're the cited source and a debate when crawlers overreach. Decide your bot policy, check your logs, and measure referrals from AI products the same way you would track search and social. You may see a lot of famous publishers blocking their content, showing one paragraph and then saying, hey, you have to log in. Other ones are like, hey, pay for it. Yes, this is happening to prevent chatbots from accessing data they shouldn't have access to, and they ignore the robust text file. So the kind of forcing the user to log in. Now, that's also a bad experience to the user. It's the equivalent experience of walking into a pharmacy and seeing everything locked. Like I went into a CVS or any pharmacy just to grab an energy drink, and lo and behold, everything was locked. I don't think energy drinks were locked, so that was good, but everything was. And that deterred me from buying something. I'd rather buy from Amazon than have to wait for someone who didn't exist, because there was like one person on the floor. Wait for someone to come in, unlock a door, and give me my product. That's the same experience. You don't want users to feel like they have to log in, they have to do something extra to receive content that should be instant, because they'll just hit the back button, or they'll just close the window and go back to AI and ask AI. Cited sources are helpful, although I will admit, I don't often click on them, but sometimes I do to verify research and things of that nature. So face of websites are changing. It's no longer an easy button to take visitors to your website. They have to have a reason to be there. And in some cases, they have to know your website exists. So you have to work on external marketing resources. 5 quick wins for WordPress, Squarespace, and creators who don't yet use the Universe platform because it doesn't exist yet. Well, to you. It exists to me, but it's not available for you yet. Will be soon. Answer first pages. Start key pages with a 2 to 4 sentence direct answer. Then expand. Cite at least one primary source. This helps both AI and users. 2. Add schema and sitemap support. Okay, ensure products, articles, local business schema is valid, and that sitemap.xml is live. Yoast Rank Map can help on WordPress, Squarespace's auto generators, and speed tune-ups. CWV, we had a whole podcast about this. Biggest thing, compress your images, lazy load, that's asynchronous loading, and streamline heavy plugins. Aim for good in Search Console Core Web Vitals report. If you're using WordPress and you have a lot of plugins and a lot of database, you can cache and reduce the amount of time it takes to do that, what's called the content printful metric. Now, the problem with that is WordPress generally has a lot of flaws in the speed, so you're going to have a lot of requirements to it's going to take a lot if you have a lot of plugins to try to make that website sing. But once you have it fast, it'll start appearing more in SEO, it'll be higher ranked, and AI will begin to notice. If you want citations from ChatGPT, Perplexity, consider allowing their bots. If not, block specific user agents. If you're a publisher and it's custom content, block it and revisit as policies evolve. Create a source-o, a page that houses your definitions, stats, and frequently asked questions, internally linked and referenced, becomes very quotable in AI context. Google's AI features page confirms it uses a variety of signals. Clear structure on your pages help. What not to overinvest in? Okay, so we talked about not chasing and reprogramming schema.org, as I had said in a reel yesterday. So don't chase depreciated rich results like universal how-tos, frequently asked questions snippets. Google reduced their visibility for most of these sites. Use FAQ schema only when it generally helps users and aligns with your policy. And Google's AEO and GEO make your pages answer ready. So AI cites you. Answer first content, add schemas, sitemap, EAT signals we talked about earlier, strong performance, smart bot policy, and if you want your own Copilot, simple RAG with LangChain, Llama Index. At the end of the day, here's the reality. Get that content out. Build your customer base. Don't rely on search engines and artificial intelligence to bring traffic to your websites. I can say this with confidence. The face of AI is changing every single day. You're going to have to shift from using artificial intelligence and targeting SEO to kind of bring visitors in to creating your own marketing strategy that brings visitors in from social media or interest-based media outlets, and a whole plethora of other items to think about. So if you've been investing in SEO and you've been investing in AEO and you're starting to create new brands or create updates, it might be time to start considering on shifting your focus to how content is written, then spending hours in metadata and keyword analysis. More relevant content to the user is better for both SEO and AEO. But generally speaking, what's going to matter is getting that content out there, building that strategy. I always say this, don't rely on someone else's system. It can change, it can break. When you're dependent on someone else's system in a code environment, you could update and crash your software and have to recode a bunch of things. It's the same thing in your business. If you're dependent on artificial intelligence and search engine optimization and social media, interest media, and you're dependent on all these external sources to bring visitors in, you're going to find that if it breaks, if technology changes, if the face of AI changes, there's a lawsuit and something changes, you're going to have a leaky boat that is sinking. And the best thing for you to do is to have a marketing strategy that doesn't rely on these components. I hope this helps. I know it's been a lot of terminology, and I've read prompters, so it wasn't as organic as my other conversations. But the important piece for you to know with RAG, AEO, GEO, and SEO is that time for investing in them is changing. You may not want to invest money into developers and marketing agencies that tout, we can get SEO, AEO, and GEO working for you, and you spend all this money and realize you get no results. And here's the reality. AI is generating responses to users, and users are now being programmed to read those responses, and they're not going to go clicking on citations. They're not going to go clicking on products. And this is just based off of internal testing conducted by my company. We don't see users clicking on those sites. And when it goes to using google.com, which I still use google.com heavily, and people in, my generation will, but we're talking about 5-10 years, the people that are going to start buying more products and start purchasing your services are going to have to find you through some other method, because AEO and GEO, all of this artificial intelligence is going to shift how visitors get to your website. And if you don't make that change now, you don't make that shift now to allow alternate pathways, you're going to be breaking your business and you'll be breaking your business model. And I don't want you to break your business or business model. I want you to succeed. So invest in the right areas, invest in the content, invest in brand loyalty, invest in traditional marketing methods that are above and beyond all of this frill stuff. You will not believe the amount of money people have to invest into digital advertising, Facebook, social media advertising, all that's popular right now, how much money they have to invest into it to just get a little bit of return on their investment. You wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it. That will be the next podcast. I'm the JumpCutKing. I pray that in everything you do, God's peace be with you, and that he directs your steps, and he gives you wisdom to know where to invest and what to do, and where to spend your resources, and understanding on where not to, and pull back and do focus excellence in certain areas and pull back from certain things that are expiring and being able to know when the seasons are shifting. I pray that for you right now, that you're able to understand when the seasons are shifting and being able to jump on the right bandwagon, because all business is risk. With the Holy Spirit, you have no risk at all, because he is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I pray this over you in Jesus' mighty name. God bless.